thank you guys for coming. And not sure if before we begin, we're going to play the Microsoft Adaptive Controller commercial.
We should do that.
All right, so let's check it out.
My name is Grover.
Sean. My name is Ian.
I'm Taylor.
My name is Owen, and I am 9.5 years old.
I only have 1.
And yeah.
I love video games, my friends, my family, and again video games.
Whenever I play it makes me feel happy.
The fun that you get to have with connecting with your friends.
You make your own rules?
It's his way of interacting with his friends when he can't physically otherwise do it.
When I'm playing with a regular controller, there's some things that don't work for me.
It's difficult for me to use both joysticks and the D-pad at the exact same time.
And it just slowed me down a bunch more, while other people were like...
She's never had the freedom to play at the level she knows she could.
I never thought it was unfair. I just thought, hey, this is the way it is and it's not gonna change.
What I like about the adaptive controller is that now everyone can play.
I don't even have to look at the controller and just be like looking at the screen like, hey, yep.
You never want your kid to feel like an outsider or an other.
One of the biggest fears early on is, how will Owen be viewed by the other kids?
He's not different when he plays.
It's a little challenging, but that's the whole point of gaming.
I can hit the buttons just as fast as they can.
And I think I can crush my friends.
No matter how your body is or how fast you are, you can play. It's a really good thing to have in this world.
So, I mean, that is so powerful. Every time I see that commercial, I'm just like, oh, hits you in the feels, man. And Gabi, Michel, you led the hardware development. You know what? I'm going to mess this up. So just tell me exactly what you've done with this project.
So I was the hardware program manager who had the honor of leading the adaptive controller program all the way from concept to the day it got on shelf. I'm still involved, obviously, as we continue to do sustaining work. Yeah, so I had the honor to lead that program, and what a journey it has been.
I mean, so like, we have to I'm gonna just dive right into it. How did you guys formulate the process to get to this point? Like, how did you guys connect with the community that is going to be using these controllers? Like, there are a lot of companies that are creating products and they have a very difficult time connecting to the consumers that the products are for. But you and your team, you guys did a wonderful job really immersing yourselves with the people that this product is for. Could you tell us how you guys went through that process?
For us, it was really important. When you're designing something for accessibility or for the disability community, there's really 2 main principles that we followed. The first was something that came about as far as the Americans with Disability Act, which is nothing about us without us. You don't design something for the accessibility or disability community without involving them. It's important that they are involved. The second thing that we really followed was actually our Microsoft Inclusive Design Principles. The very first one is recognize exclusion. And that's, I think, where a lot of people trip up. It's so hard to recognize where you're excluding things or people because you design and you think with your own biases. And so you have to recognize exclusion in your products. You have to recognize exclusion in your way of thinking. And then from there, you get to move on to learn from diversity. And so that was kind of where we really started involving the community, is that second inclusive design step of learn from diversity. You know, we reached out to nonprofits that were already in this space. You've got Able Gamers, Warfighter Engaged, Special Effects, Cerebral Palsy Foundation. They're all already serving these communities. So we reached out to them, we got their feedback, we asked a lot of questions, and we listened. You know, we didn't try and give them solutions right away, we just listened. And developed this sort of learn-it-all instead of a know-it-all. We had to learn. And from there, we honestly just asked, like, hey, do you know some people who might want to test for us or give us their feedback on the product and the packaging, and people we could go visit? So we went and we visited the homes of gamers with limited mobility. I remember my user research and we were driving all over England in a week, and it was the busiest week, but we visited as many gamers with limited mobility in England that we possibly could because we wanted to see their setup, we wanted to hear their feedback and really absorb it. And you do it.
So, I mean, this whole conference is about building gaming communities. So, as you guys develop this product, like, what were some of the challenges that you ran into? Like, what were some of the challenges that your team ran into?
Well, it's hardware development, so there's it's a constant challenge. Actually, so there's one story that we never really told about a challenge that we faced, and it was actually something we faced early on, where we actually really struggled early on what we were supposed to build. So the part of the story that I think a lot of people know is that it started with a hackathon, and it was just a group of engineers who partnered with Warfighter Engaged back in the 2015 hackathon and really wanted to solve the problem for a single gamer. And then it evolved from there in 2016 where they refined the concept, but then after that, like a hackathon isn't a full product. Like how do you take something that's a hack and really create a full product around it? And we struggled and we stumbled. And it goes back to that recognized exclusion where it was actually an exclusion in our thinking because we were so used to designing for a single use case. You know, you have two hands and all your fingers and you can reach all the buttons. We've got a really fantastic Xbox wireless controller that's meant for one use case. And so when you're writing hardware requirements or product requirements and even the nitty-gritty engineering specifications, all the engineers were asking, well, what's our use case? What's our use case? We need to define our use case. And as we kept asking that question over and over and we couldn't answer it, we realized the use case for the adaptive controller is every other use case. You've got the single use case for the traditional controller. The adaptive controller is every single other use case.
Wow.
And how do you design for that? And we actually pivoted really hard. What was in those early concepts in the hackathon is not what we ended up shipping. So for about 4 months, we sort of figured out how to pivot and ultimately ship something that was super adaptable and super helpful for gamers with limited mobility.
Well, I want to shift gears for a moment because I got to talk to this woman a little bit before this session, and Gabi is so passionate. You bring so much passion to this project from an individual basis. So can you tell us a little bit about your personal story and even how you got here?
Sure. Nobody's really asked me about me before.
It's all about you.
So it's funny, when you and I were having a conversation, you just said that you didn't think 10-year-olds knew that they could grow up and do this thing. And it was funny because my response to you was, actually, I did know this is what I wanted to be when I was 10.
Jealous.
I was super lucky. I had a really great 5th grade teacher, and he encouraged me to learn about mechanical engineering and what mechanical engineers do. And I just remember walking out of a career day session in 5th grade and knowing that I wanted to be a mechanical engineer, and it stuck with me. And that teacher really encouraged me to go for it. And that's what I became. I became a mechanical engineer, and I eventually transitioned to being a program manager because I'm really good at juggling all the things that it takes to ship a hardware product. But I knew what I wanted to be. And I was lucky enough to get a job at Microsoft. I've done program management in so many different fields. I've done aerospace, infrastructure, hydraulics, the oil industry, and I found my way to Microsoft and consumer electronics, and it really fits me super well as a nerdy, techie gamer. And when this program came along, it actually wasn't assigned to me first. But I said, hey, I want to help out. I want to support it. Even if it's not my program, I want to support it. And then we got to a situation where they were actually reshuffling workloads. And they said, hey, we need to figure out how to balance things. And I said, I don't need balance. I just want that program. And I kind of took it and never gave it back.
Don't skate over that, because it's really difficult to just take it. I want you to tell me about that process of how you just knew that this was what you were going to do, and the challenges. How did you know that you were going to do it, and what was the process for you to get there? You just knew, and
I just knew. As a gamer, you see, I grew up in the gaming community. I've been a gamer my whole life. And I knew how important it was to make sure that everybody could game. It goes back to the message of the Super Bowl. when everybody plays, we all win. And I grew up with people who had disabilities. I knew they struggled with gaming as well. And it was important to me, and I wanted to lead that program, and so I took it.
I love it. So now, you know, you guys have created this amazing adaptive controller. You guys have listened to the community and made something that is super effective, super empowering. So I hate to ask you, but what's next?
Well,
like, I know you just did all this work, you and your team, but I want to know, what are you guys working on next?
I'm not sure I can totally answer that question.
Oh, here we go. NDA.
We have always said that the adaptive controller was just a part of the journey. It's not the start of our journey, not for Xbox, not for Microsoft. We've done other things like narrator, seeing AI. We did Copilot 2 years ago. So the adaptive controller is just the current thing that we just released. It's not the beginning of our journey. It's definitely not the end. Like, we are going to be continuing on this accessibility journey, and we've committed to that. And as far as like really what's next, it's actually something that we announced last November, but I don't know if anybody really noticed. We're actually expanding the regions that the adaptive controller is available in. Right now, it's available in US, Canada, UK, EU, and Australia, New Zealand. But we're actually expanding to all countries that Xbox is available in. So you're talking Latin America, South America, Asia, oh boy, other places. So all of Xbox countries.
Gabi, remember them.
So we're actually, this year we committed to expanding to all Xbox countries worldwide. So I'm super excited to have Xbox gamers worldwide to be able to use the adaptive controller.
All right, I mean, you've learned so much from this project personally, I'm sure, and your team has learned so much just by going through this process. Is there anything that you can share with us and other companies when they're creating their games and their products, and how they can like be more immersed in the communities that they're trying to reach? Is there something that you guys discovered, anything new or unique?
Honestly, it actually kind of goes back again to the commercial, the when everybody plays, we all win. Games are so enriching and empowering. I mean, nowhere else can you be a race car driver, or you can be a Spartan that saves the galaxy named Master Chief. Or my personal favorite, you get to be an Inquisitor. So like that empowerment and that enriching only gets better when you include more people and really include people. And so the future and where the biggest opportunities are accessibility and inclusion, and just making sure that everybody can play.
Is there any like actionable items in that sort of, I mean, because we use a lot of these words like, you know, accessibility and inclusiveness, but what does it really mean? Like, how do people like really, how are people present to that, and how do people act on that in a way that's effective and authentic? You have all the answers.
I know, I don't have, but, well, it's funny. So we actually have a saying it's posted in our Inclusive Tech Lab, and it says, if you do not deliberately and intentionally include, you are unintentionally excluding. And honestly, that's really powerful, because do you really want to exclude people? Like, we want to build a strong and amazing community, so we should be intentionally and deliberately including. And I'll go back to our inclusive design principles, because honestly, those have changed my life, not just because of the adaptive controller, but it's changed how I think. So you recognize exclusion, you learn from diversity, and then the third one is actually solve for one and extend to many, which I realize seems like a weird concept, like how do you solve for one, extend to many? But that's actually what we did. I mentioned the 2015 hackathon. We were only trying to make one gamer play. We were trying to get him to play Killer Instinct. His name was Sergeant Josh Price. We got connected to him through Warfighter Engaged. It was one. We were trying to solve for one gamer. And then through the process of this product development, we got to the extend to many. So it actually works, and that's inclusive design.
So you're not only an engineer, but you are also a gamer. Is your passion for gaming, what has that like sort of giving you as it pertains to creating these products? Because gamers have a very interesting perspective on problem solving. So could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, I think you kind of said it. It gives me a passion for these projects and these programs and these products that I get to launch, because I want to do the gaming community justice. I want to, as a gamer, I want to build something great for gamers. You know, for the adaptive controller, I wanted to build something great for gamers with limited mobility so that they could play, and they could play any game they wanted to. When I led Xbox Design Lab, it was about allowing the customers to express themselves in the controller and really like have a physical manifestation of who you are and who your personality is. And every program I've led, it's always been about gamers first and what would be strengthening to them and the community.
All right, well, I'm gonna ask you one more question, and then if the audience has any questions, would love to take them. So with everything that we just talked about today, you mentioned a couple of very powerful things. Like when you were 10, you knew you wanted to be an engineer and you knew you wanted to do all these things. When you saw that there's this program for the Xbox adaptive controller, you knew that you wanted to be a part of the program and you just did it. Is there any advice you can give to people who are intimidated by the challenges because they don't see themselves in the spaces that they want to be a part of? Like when you were 10, did you see other female engineers? Like, you know, like you've been in spaces where you don't necessarily see yourself represented, but you still, you know, you take it for yourself. So is there anything that you can offer people who might not have tapped into that level of confidence yet?
I think it probably really helps that I have a very stubborn streak. But a lot of it is don't be afraid to fail. Like, there's actually a Zen saying I really like, that's leap and the net will catch you. Like, take that leap, be willing to risk something, and don't be afraid of failing, because you can pick yourself up and you can move on and you can do the next thing that you need to do. So that, to me, we actually have a saying in Microsoft devices, it's fail fast. It's one of our 5 tenets. And I've really embraced that, and just like, we're gonna fail. Hardware development is all about building something, designing something you think is amazing, building it for the first time, testing it, and realizing, yeah, that's not working. And then you iterate on your design and you build again and you find more failures, and that's engineering. And so just being willing to take the risk, and also saying, you know, I might fail, but I'm gonna always learn from it, and then take the next step and grow.
All right. I couldn't have thought about that in a better way. So leap and the net will catch you. I like that. So we have a minute or two left. Do any of you, immediately.
So it's funny that you mentioned Velcro, because a lot of our partners, when I was talking about going to the community, like, they use Velcro. Velcro is a super important part of every controller setup we did with the adaptive controller. In fact, the reason why the bottom of the controller is black and not white is because we have users that will stick Velcro to the bottom of it, and they didn't want to put black Velcro on a white thing, so because it was originally white. And so the bottom is black because of Velcro. So Velcro, and then the 3.5mm jacks that are on the front of the device, those are actually existing accessibility ports, because the accessibility community uses those buttons and switches all around their house for turning on lights or opening doors. And so we actually adapted a technology that the disability community was already using.
All right.
Fantastic product. Even packaging is brilliant too. You didn't really talk about that, but anyone can open the packaging. Design, it was very thoughtfully designed. I've noticed that Satya Nadella has been really, sort of showcasing a lot of these efforts within the company. And I'm wondering, where did that come from, and how is that viewed within Microsoft? Obviously, it's a business, but there's also a lot of social good and important things that you're doing around that. So can you talk a little bit how that manifests itself in Microsoft?
Well, we have 5 seconds left, so I'll answer it after. But so if you actually read Satya's book, his eldest son has cerebral palsy. And so that is something that I think has made him very passionate, and now it's red and flashing at us. So I think that's why he's been such a champion. Where the adaptive controller came from was the hackathon. So it was actually engineers within Xbox that started that.
All right, I see we got a couple of engineers in the audience for sure. Thank you guys all for coming. Thank you, Gabi, for sharing your story. Like, this has been amazing. I just, they shouldn't have started it off with that commercial. I'm just like, I'm about to start crying. But thank you guys so much.
Thanks.